Welcome back to another episode of Touching Stories. We're thankful for your continued viewership and deeply appreciate you being here with us. Before we begin, tell us where in the world are you watching from? It always warms our hearts to know how far our stories travel and how many people they touch. We love knowing our global reach, a vast community built around shared human experiences. Now, let's dive into today's story, a journey that will surely resonate with many of you. Chapter 1. The Message. I, Liam Walker, stared at the direct message glowing on my phone, the harsh blue light cutting through the dimness of the military charter plane, illuminating my weathered, 42-year-old face. The air inside the cabin, bound for Fort McKinley Army Base, was thick with the stale scent of jet fuel and nervous anticipation. Around me, other soldiers, my brothers and sisters in arms, dozed fitfully or chatted with an almost desperate excitement about returning home for Christmas, their voices a low hum of hope. But a cold dread, sharp as a shard of ice, pierced my chest as I read the cruel words again, each one a tiny, poison dart. Christmas is better without you. Mom doesn't want you here either. Don't come. The message, delivered with brutal finality, was from Noah, my 17-year-old son, a boy on the cusp of manhood, a boy I barely knew anymore. After 3 consecutive, soul-crushing deployments with special forces stretching across 4 agonizingly long years, with only fleeting, unsatisfactory visits home that felt more like interruptions than reunions, this was supposed to be my triumphant return. This was meant to be my first real Christmas with my family in what felt like a lifetime, a beacon I had clung to through the darkest nights. I had endured the hell of firefights in dust-choked valleys of the Middle East, the kind of places that steal pieces of your soul. I had spent endless, vigilant nights in desolate forward operating bases, the silence broken only by the distant crump of artillery or the gnawing fear in my own gut. I had watched comrades, men I loved like brothers, fall beside me, their unfinished lives staining the foreign soil, all of it sustained by a single, unwavering thought that became my mantra. I'm doing this for them, for my family, for Olivia, for Noah, for Chloe. My fingers, calloused and scarred from years of combat, hovered over the phone's cold screen, trembling almost imperceptibly. So many responses, a torrent of them, flooded my mind. Sharp questions demanding answers, desperate protests against this sudden, inexplicable banishment, and a rising tide of raw, visceral anger that threatened to consume me. But 17 years of iron military discipline, of suppressing emotion to survive, had taught me an economy of expression, a brutal efficiency in communication. I typed a single, desolate word. Understood. The word felt like a surrender, a white flag raised over the smoldering ruins of my hopes. Then, with a detachment that surprised even myself, I switched to my Sterling Trust Bank app. My mind, honed by years of strategic thinking, was already shifting gears, assessing damage, formulating a new plan. A few deliberate taps on the screen, each one a small, precise movement, and I initiated the transfer of funds from a joint account I shared with Olivia to a private one she knew nothing about. A contingency fund, a safety net. I, Liam Walker, had always been prudent, a planner, a man who prepared for the worst even while hoping for the best. The plane hit a pocket of turbulence then, a sudden, violent lurch that rattled the cabin and startled some of the sleeping soldiers. But I barely registered the jolt, my focus entirely internal. My mind was already racing far ahead, tactical planning kicking into overdrive, the same sharp, analytical skills that had kept me alive in the crucible of combat were now being redirected toward a different kind of battlefield, a domestic one, but no less treacherous. Major Ben Carter, my former commanding officer and a man I respected deeply, would have expected no less. Sergeant Wilson, a good man, younger than me, seated beside me, noticed the sudden pallor of my expression, the grim set of my jaw. "Everything all right, Liam?" he asked, his voice laced with genuine concern. A wave of nausea washed over me, the bitter taste of betrayal coating my tongue. "Bad news from home," I managed to say, my voice flat, devoid of the emotion churning within me. I locked my phone, the screen going dark, mirroring the sudden darkness in my soul. "Just a change of plans, a significant one. Thought you were headed straight to Cedar Ridge, back to your family." Wilson pressed gently, sensing the depth of my unspoken pain. I said, my voice even, a carefully constructed dam holding back a flood of grief and rage. "Now I'm not." The dream of that joyful reunion, the warm embraces, the laughter, it all crumbled to dust. Major Ben Carter, now working a desk job at the Pentagon but still a formidable presence, found me in the crowded, impersonal terminal after we landed at Fort McKinley Army Base. The noise and chaos of the arrival hall seemed to mock the turmoil in my heart. Major Carter had been my commanding officer for 7 long, arduous years and knew me better than most, perhaps even better than Olivia did now. He was a man of few words but keen insight. "Walker," he said, his voice calm and steady as always, a familiar anchor in my suddenly chaotic world. "Thought you'd be halfway to Colorado by now, eager to see your wife and kids. Your connecting flight to Cedar Ridge left 20 minutes ago." I glanced up from my laptop, where I'd been trying to distract myself with meaningless tasks, the screen a poor substitute for human connection. "Taking a detour, Major Carter," I replied, my voice carefully neutral. "A necessary one, it seems." Major Carter studied me for a long moment, his sharp eyes missing nothing, taking in the lines of exhaustion etched around my eyes, the subtle tremor in my hands. "Olivia know about this detour?" he asked, his tone casual but his gaze intense. "No, sir," I admitted, the words feeling like another small betrayal, another secret kept. The major, a man who valued loyalty and directness above all else, sat beside me on the uncomfortable plastic airport chair, a silent offer of support. "Trouble at home, Liam?" he asked, his voice softer now, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Nothing I can't handle, sir," I said, trying to project a confidence I no longer felt. I continued typing, finalizing a rental car reservation for a vehicle I hadn't planned on needing, each keystroke a painful reminder of my shattered homecoming. "You've been through hell these past few deployments, Walker," Major Carter said, his voice filled with a rare empathy. "Kandahar was a nightmare. That mess in Syria nearly got us all killed, and the extraction in Yemen. Well, you earned your homecoming, son. You truly did." His words, meant to comfort, only twisted the knife deeper. I stopped typing, the clatter of the keys suddenly too loud in the suffocating silence between us. "Turns out I'm not welcome at home, Major," I said, the bald statement hanging heavy in the air. "The family I fought to protect doesn't want me." Major Carter's eyebrows, usually furrowed in concentration, rose in surprise. "Want to talk about it, Liam?" he offered, a lifeline in the churning waters of my despair. "Not particularly, sir," I replied, my throat tight. "Some things are too raw, too painful to articulate just yet." "Fair enough," he said, respecting my need for space, for privacy. He reached into his wallet and handed me a crisp business card. "My sister-in-law," he explained. "Sophia Hayes, best damn divorce attorney in Virginia, possibly the entire East Coast. Sharp as a tack and fights like a wolverine. Just in case," he added, his voice gentle, "your detour becomes a permanent change of address." I took the card, the smooth, expensive paper cool against my clammy palm, and tucked it carefully into my wallet, a small, grim acknowledgement of a future I hadn't dared to imagine until a few hours ago. "Appreciate it, Major Carter," I said, my voice hoarse. "More than you know. Whatever's happening, Liam, remember who you are," Major Carter said, his hand resting reassuringly on my shoulder for a brief moment. "You're Liam Walker. You're a planner. You're a survivor. Don't do anything rash, son." A thin, humorless smile touched my lips, a pale imitation of my usual grin. "I never do, sir," I assured him, though a cold, hard knot of anger was tightening in my gut. "Everything I do is calculated, meticulously planned." Olivia is about to learn that the hard way. 48 agonizingly long hours later, hours filled with a maelstrom of conflicting emotions, grief, rage, confusion, and a chillingly calm determination, I sat in a modest, anonymous hotel room in Cedar Ridge, the town I once called home. The generic art on the walls and the faint smell of disinfectant did little to soothe my frayed nerves. I watched my phone light up for the 13th time in 2 excruciating hours, each missed call a fresh wave of anxiety and suppressed fury. This one was from a local Cedar Ridge number I didn't recognize, probably another attempt by Olivia or her new allies. I let it go to voicemail, the unanswered ring an act of defiance, a small reclaiming of control. When the notification finally appeared, a tiny digital flag of surrender, I played it back, my heart pounding a heavy, reluctant rhythm against my ribs. "Mr. Walker," a smooth, overly confident voice began, the kind that oozed insincere concern. "This is Graham Phillips from Archer, Bellwether and Stone, attorneys at law. A fine firm, I'm sure. I'm representing Olivia Walker in this delicate matter. It is imperative, Mr. Walker, absolutely imperative, that we speak immediately regarding the rather precipitous financial actions you've taken. Please call our office at your earliest possible convenience, sooner, if possible." I checked my watch, the slow sweep of the second hand marking the agonizingly slow passage of time. Then, with a grim sense of purpose, I opened my laptop and refreshed the Sterling Trust Bank webpage. The transfer had cleared. The funds were secure, beyond Olivia's reach. The second phase of my meticulously crafted plan could now begin. I wasn't just a soldier, a warrior trained for physical combat. I was a strategist, a thinker, a man who anticipated his enemy's moves. And Olivia, my wife, the woman who had shared my bed and borne my children, had foolishly, catastrophically forgotten that. She had mistaken my long absences for indifference, my quiet strength for weakness. She was about to be reminded, in no uncertain terms, of the man she had betrayed. Chapter 2. The Discovery. I remembered our wedding day 16 years ago with a clarity that was now painful. Olivia had been radiant, almost ethereal in her simple white dress, her auburn hair, the color of rich mahogany, catching the golden afternoon sunlight that streamed through the church windows. Her smile, then, had been genuine, full of love and hope for our future. Back then, I'd been a young lieutenant, barely out of officer training, filled with idealistic dreams of making a difference in the world, of serving my country with honor. And she, Olivia, had been a dedicated, compassionate nurse, her gentle hands and kind heart a soothing balm to my often troubled soul. Together, we built a life, brick by painstaking brick. The comfortable, welcoming house in Cedar Ridge, a place filled with laughter and love. The joyous, overwhelming birth of Noah, our firstborn son. And 3 years later, the arrival of Chloe, our bright, inquisitive daughter, who had her mother's eyes and my stubborn chin. The long deployments, the inevitable consequence of my chosen profession, had started taking their toll slowly, insidiously, eroding the foundations of our marriage like a relentless tide. During my third tour, a particularly brutal one in a godforsaken corner of the world, I had tried desperately to bridge the ever-widening distance between us. I initiated video calls whenever the shaky satellite connection allowed, hungry for the sight of her face, the sound of her voice. I sent care packages filled with small tokens of my love for birthdays and anniversaries, each item chosen with care, a tangible reminder that I was still thinking of them always. I meticulously planned special adventurous trips for my brief periods of leave, hoping to recapture the magic, the connection we once shared. But something had irrevocably changed over the past year, a subtle cooling, a growing remoteness in Olivia's demeanor that I had, in my blind optimism, chosen to ignore. Her pulse, once filled with warmth and longing, grew shorter, more perfunctory, her voice often distant, preoccupied. Her letters, which I treasured like sacred texts, became less frequent, their content increasingly superficial, devoid of the intimate details and shared emotions that had once sustained me through the lonely nights. I'd foolishly attributed it all to the immense stress of her managing everything alone: the house, the children, her part-time nursing job at Redwood General Hospital, the endless worries of a military wife. Now, sitting in a nondescript rental car, the cheap upholstery smelling faintly of stale cigarettes and regret, parked a discreet distance from my own home, the home I had bled for, I realized with a sickening lurch just how profoundly naive, how willfully blind I had been. A sleek, silver Audi I didn't recognize, a ostentatious symbol of someone else's success, sat arrogantly in my driveway, nestled uncomfortably close to Olivia's familiar SUV. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Through the powerful, military-grade binoculars I always kept in my go bag, I watched, my breath catching in my throat, as a tall, distinguished-looking man with a mane of salt and pepper hair, probably in his early 50s, emerged from my front door, with an air of casual ownership that made my blood boil. He was followed, a moment later, by Olivia. My Olivia. They embraced on the porch I had built with my own hands, not a friendly, platonic hug, but a deeply intimate one, the kind that spoke of shared secrets and stolen moments, an embrace that ended with a lingering, passionate kiss that shattered the remaining fragments of my world. The sight was a visceral blow, knocking the air from my lungs, leaving me gasping, drowning in a sea of betrayal. I remained perfectly still, my breathing controlled, shallow, a discipline honed by countless hours spent on clandestine surveillance missions in hostile territory. My training kicked in, a cold, mechanical response to overwhelming emotional trauma. I raised my smartphone, my hand surprisingly steady, and snapped several clear, damning photos, each click a nail in the coffin of my marriage. Then, with a calmness that felt alien, I started the car. As I pulled away from the curb, a silent, unseen observer of my own life's implosion, I caught a fleeting glimpse of Noah, my son, watching from an upstairs window, his young face a mask of confusion and, perhaps, dawning awareness. Our eyes met briefly, a silent, agonizing exchange, before I drove off, the image of his troubled face seared into my memory. My next stop was Westwood High School, a place of youthful dreams and anxieties, a stark contrast to the adult nightmare I was currently living. I waited in the bustling parking lot, a ghost at the feast of teenage life, until the final bell shrieked, releasing a flood of students into the afternoon sun. It took me a good 10 minutes, my eyes scanning the laughing, chattering throng, to spot Chloe, my precious daughter, among the crowd. My 15-year-old daughter, a beacon of light in my increasingly dark world, had grown taller since I'd last seen her, her hair now styled in a way that made her look older, more sophisticated, but I'd recognize her anywhere, her bright spirit an undeniable echo of my own. I watched, my heart aching, as she climbed into a friend's car, her laughter, light and carefree, drifting on the breeze, no sign in her innocent joy that her world was crumbling around her. No indication whatsoever that she had participated in sending that brutally cruel message. But I needed to be absolutely, unequivocally sure. That evening, a knot of cold dread tightening in my stomach, I followed the silver Audi, its driver oblivious to the storm gathering around him, to an upscale, pretentious neighborhood in the northern part of Cedar Ridge. The man, who I now knew from a simple, quick DMV record search, was a Dr. Ethan Miller, a prominent and respected heart surgeon at Redwood General Hospital, where Olivia also worked part-time, pulled into the circular driveway of a large, imposing Tudor-style home, a monument to his success and, apparently, his duplicity. I parked my inconspicuous rental car down the street and walked to a nearby, trendy coffee shop, choosing a table with a clear, unobstructed view of Dr. Miller's house. The aroma of roasted coffee beans, and an undercurrent of smug entitlement filled the air. I opened my laptop and, using the specialized skills I had acquired during highly classified intelligence operations, skills I never imagined I'd use in my personal life, I accessed public records, digital breadcrumbs about the esteemed D.R. Miller. The picture that emerged was unsettling. Divorced 3 years ago from a Ms. Isabella Rossi. 2 previous marriages before that, both ending in similarly acrimonious and financially beneficial for him circumstances. A disturbing pattern was emerging, a predatory cycle of charm, manipulation, and discard. My phone, a constant, unwelcome companion in my misery, rang again, its shrill summons grating on my already frayed nerves. Olivia. Her name flashed on the screen, a painful reminder of the woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved. I declined the call, a small act of self-preservation, and checked my email instead, seeking refuge in the cold, impersonal world of digital communication. The message from Marcus Cole, my old Army buddy, a former Army Ranger, now running his own highly successful security consultancy and private investigation firm, Apex Strategic Solutions, contained exactly what I'd asked for, delivered with his usual efficiency and discretion. Unrestricted access to Olivia's text message history. My gut clenched. I hesitated for a moment, a part of me recoiling from the ugliness I knew I was about to uncover. But I had to know. I needed the truth, however painful. There it was, laid out in stark, irrefutable black and white, a digital chronicle of her betrayal. The affair, a sordid, clandestine entanglement with D.R. Miller, had been going on for 18 long months, 18 months of lies, deceit, and stolen moments, all while I was deployed, risking my life in some godforsaken corner of the globe, believing, like a fool, that my marriage was sacrosanct, that my family was waiting faithfully for my return. There were messages meticulously planning their secret rendezvous, coded words and veiled suggestions that now, in retrospect, screamed of their guilt. There were lengthy, detailed discussions about their future together, a future that conspicuously did not include me, filled with shared dreams built on the wreckage of my own. And most damning, most calculated of all, there were cold, callous conversations about how and when to tell me they wanted a divorce, timed with chilling precision for maximum financial advantage to Olivia, a strategic move to plunder the assets I had worked my entire life to accumulate. But the text message that truly chilled my blood, that sent a sliver of ice straight through my heart, wasn't from Olivia to her lover, D.R. Miller. It was from Olivia to Noah, my son, her son, sent the day before I received that crushing, soul-destroying message from him. "Your father's coming home tomorrow, Noah." The words were innocuous enough on their own, but the subtext, the insidious manipulation, was horrifying. "Remember what we discussed, sweetie. It's for the best. It's better this way for all of us. You'll see. D.R. Miller. Ethan. He'll be a much better father figure for you and Chloe. He's kind, and he's here. Be strong, my brave boy. Mommy loves you." I closed my laptop, a wave of nausea washing over me, the bitter taste of betrayal coating my tongue. My son, my own flesh and blood, hadn't betrayed me entirely on his own. He'd been expertly, cruelly manipulated, his teenage insecurities and resentments skillfully exploited by his own mother. But that didn't entirely excuse his actions, not in my book. He was old enough to know better, to question, to resist. As darkness, both literal and metaphorical, fell over Cedar Ridge, I made my way to a different, even more anonymous hotel, paying in cash, a ghost in my own life. I began meticulously, methodically planning my next moves, my mind a cold, calculating machine. Major Carter had been right about one thing. I, Liam Walker, was a planner, a strategist to my core. But he'd been profoundly wrong about another. Sometimes, to people who didn't understand the brutal calculus of strategy, carefully calculated actions looked a lot like rash, impulsive decisions. Olivia and D.R. Miller were about to learn that distinction. My phone buzzed again, a venomous little viper in my pocket. with a text from a number I didn't recognize, though I had a sinking feeling I knew who it was. This is Graham Phillips, Olivia Walker's attorney from Archer, Bellwether and Stone. The formality was almost comical given the circumstances. You need to respond to our numerous calls and messages immediately, Mr. Walker, or prepare to face significant legal consequences. This is not a request. I typed back a single, concise word, the same word I had sent to my son, a word that now felt like a declaration of war. Understood. Then I turned off my phone, severing the last electronic tether to my old life, and continued my meticulous planning, the intricate details of my counter-offensive taking shape in the sterile silence of the hotel room. The game was afoot. Chapter 3. The Strategy. The modest, unassuming office building in downtown Cedar Ridge, a structure that blended seamlessly into the urban landscape, housed Apex Strategic Solutions, the private investigation and security consulting firm run by Marcus Cole. Marcus, a former Army Ranger, a brother-in-arms who'd served alongside me in the hellish landscapes of Iraq during my first tour, was a man I trusted implicitly, a man whose loyalty was as unshakable as his courage. I hadn't called ahead, a breach of protocol I knew he'd forgive, but Marcus's weathered face, etched with the memories of battles fought and demons faced, lit up with genuine, surprised recognition when I walked unannounced through his office door. "Liam Walker," he boomed, his voice a gravelly baritone that always managed to convey both strength and warmth. "Last I heard, you were still dodging bullets and charming the locals overseas, a true American hero." The burly ex-ranger, built like a damn oak tree, enveloped me in a crushing bear hug, a gesture of camaraderie that momentarily eased the gnawing ache in my chest. "Just got back, Marcus," I said, my voice rough, returning the hug with a little less of my usual enthusiasm, the weight of my recent discovery pressing down on me. Marcus, ever perceptive, pulled back, his shrewd eyes studying my face, taking in the haunted look in my eyes, the grim set of my jaw. "This isn't just a social call, is it, brother?" he asked, his tone shifting from jovial to serious in an instant. "You look like you've seen a ghost, or worse." "I need your help, Marcus," I said, the words stark and heavy. "Your particular set of skills. I'm in a real mess." An hour later, a lifetime condensed into 60 agonizing minutes, we sat in his cluttered but surprisingly organized office, surrounded by a chaotic, yet somehow ordered array of printouts, damning text messages, complex bank statements that painted a clear picture of financial malfeasance, and official-looking property records that spoke of secret acquisitions. The air in the room was thick with the stench of betrayal. Marcus whistled low, a long, drawn-out sound of disbelief and dawning anger. "Your wife, Olivia, and this good Dr. Miller, they've been busy little bees, haven't they?" he said, his voice laced with contempt. "Looks like a joint checking account at Summit Creek First National Bank, opened 6 months ago, just after your last deployment started. Convenient. Multiple weekend trips to, let's see, charming bed and breakfasts while you were sweating it out in the desert, thinking she was at home missing you. And get this, Liam, it looks like they've been actively house hunting together, playing happy families with your money." He pointed a thick finger at a series of printed emails, his expression grim. "These here are for viewings of high-end properties in Aspen. We're talking multi-million-dollar second homes, luxury vacation spots, the kind of places people buy when they're planning a very comfortable future." "Paid for with what money, Marcus?" I asked, my voice a low growl, though a cold, sickening certainty was already coiling in my gut. I already knew the answer, but I needed to hear him say it. Marcus met my gaze, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and righteous anger. "Yours, brother," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Every damn cent of it, it seems. Your military salary, dutifully deposited month after month. Your investment portfolio, the one you've been carefully building for your family's future. And this is the real kicker, Liam. It looks like they've been systematically accessing the Walker family trust, your grandfather's legacy, The one you've been religiously saving for Noah and Chloe's college education for their future. I felt a cold, hard fury, colder and harder than any fear I'd ever experienced in combat, settled deep in my chest, a chilling, dangerous calm. The money, as substantial as it was, didn't matter as much as the calculated, malicious betrayal, the systematic, cold-blooded deception that had clearly been orchestrated over months, if not years. This wasn't just an affair. This was a meticulously planned financial execution. "What's your play here, Liam?" Marcus asked, leaning forward, his expression intense. "Because just running off half your joint assets and changing a few beneficiaries, while a good first step, won't be enough to stop her if she's got a sharp attorney like that Phillips character from Ab's Law sniffing around." "I'm not just changing beneficiaries, Marcus," I said quietly, my voice dangerously low, each word precise and deliberate. "I'm changing everything. I'm taking back control. But I need hard, irrefutable evidence, the kind that stands up in court. And I need it fast, before they realize the full extent of what I know." Marcus nodded, his jaw tight with grim determination. "I can get you everything you need, Liam. Full surveillance, financial forensics, background checks deep enough to find skeletons buried for decades. I can have it all on your desk in 72 hours, maybe less. But it'll cost you, brother. This kind of deep dive isn't cheap." "Money is not an issue, Marcus," I stated flatly. "It's irrelevant at this point." "It's not just about the money, though, is it?" Marcus leaned even further forward, his eyes boring into mine, searching for something. "What are you really planning to do with this information, Liam? Because if you're thinking about something permanent, something outside the lines—" "I'm not going to kill anyone, Marcus, if that's what you're asking," I interrupted, my voice firm, though the thought, a fleeting, dark shadow, had admittedly crossed my mind in the initial shockwave of pain. "I'm a soldier, a protector, not a murderer. Despite everything, I still believe in the rule of law." "Good," Marcus said, relaxing slightly, a visible wave of relief washing over him. "Because I wouldn't help you with that, Liam. You know I wouldn't. That's a line we don't cross. But," he continued, a predatory glint now in his eyes, "I will, with great personal satisfaction, help you burn their entire illicit world to the ground legally and methodically. We'll dismantle them piece by piece. Just don't cross that line yourself, brother. Promise me." "The only line I'm interested in, Marcus, is the one that clearly defines what's mine and what's theirs," I assured him, my voice like ice. "And they've crossed it for the very last time. There will be a reckoning." That evening, adhering to strict operational security protocols ingrained from years in special forces, I checked into yet another different hotel under a different assumed name, a ghost moving through the city. It was a habit born from necessity in war zones, but now it served a different, more personal, strategic purpose. My burner phone, the one Olivia didn't know about, showed 27 missed calls, a relentless, desperate barrage. 15 from Olivia, her panic undoubtedly escalating. 8 from her attorney, Mr. Phillips, his professional veneer likely cracking under the strain. 3 hesitant, guilt-ridden calls from Noah. And 1 from an unknown number that made my heart skip a beat. I listened to the voicemail from the unknown caller, my breath catching in my throat. "Dad? It's Chloe," her sweet, clear voice, a lifeline in the darkness, was laced with an anxiety no 15-year-old should ever have to feel. "Mom and Noah. They won't tell me what's going on, but I know something's terribly wrong. Mom's been crying almost constantly, and there were these weird men in suits, lawyers I think, at the house this afternoon asking a lot of scary questions." Her voice trembled. "Please, Dad, please call me back. I miss you. I'm scared." I closed my eyes, a wave of protectiveness, so fierce it was almost painful, washing over me. Chloe, my sweet, perceptive, innocent daughter. Her voice message, her fear, her unwavering faith in me, confirmed what I had suspected. She hadn't been part of Olivia's cruel plan to drive me away. She was an innocent caught in the crossfire. I saved the voicemail, a precious recording of her trust, but I didn't call her back, not yet. First, I needed to be absolutely certain of my next steps. My emotions were a liability I couldn't afford. My laptop pinged with an incoming encrypted email from Marcus. The subject line was brief and to the point. First batch of evidence. More coming tomorrow. You were right about everything, Liam. And it's worse than we thought. My heart hammered against my ribs. Attached were crystal clear surveillance photos, expertly taken, of Dr. Ethan Miller, Olivia's lover, entering my home, the home I had built for my family, using his own key, as if he belonged there. Time-stamped images showed him comfortable, arrogantly at ease in my personal space, lounging in my favorite armchair, wearing my damn robe, drinking coffee from my favorite mug. Small, intimate violations that somehow cut deeper, felt more personal than the affair itself. It was a desecration. But the most valuable piece of evidence, the smoking gun, was the audio file. It was a recording, perfectly legal in Colorado with one-party consent. Marcus's operative of Olivia and Dr. Miller, her Ethan, discussing their future plans in sickening detail. Once the divorce from Liam is final, darling, Olivia was saying, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that made my stomach churn. We'll sell this dreadful place, combine our assets well, mostly his assets initially, and we'll build something that's truly ours, something magnificent in Isla Verde. A fresh start. No more ghosts of Liam haunting every damn room, reminding me of my mistakes. What about the kids, Olivia? Dr. Miller asked, his voice smooth, solicitous, a practiced charmer. Noah and Chloe. Will they be a problem? Noah's already on board, Ethan, practically eating out of your hand. Olivia replied with a chilling lack of maternal concern. He barely remembers his father anymore, just the broken promises, the missed birthdays, the constant absence. I've made sure of that. Chloe will be a little tougher. She's always been a daddy's girl, but she'll adjust eventually. Children are remarkably resilient, especially when they see how happy their mother is. And the money, Olivia? Dr. Miller pressed, his voice betraying a hint of avarice. Liam's military pension, the investments he's always bragging about, that trust fund? Olivia's laugh when it came was cold, brittle, and utterly unfamiliar, a chilling sound that bore no resemblance to the warm, joyful laughter I remembered. Colorado is an equitable distribution state, my dear Ethan, she purred, confident, triumphant. After 16 long years of marriage, with him conveniently absent for most of it, gallivanting around the world playing soldier, I'll get at least half of everything. My lawyer at Abbs Law assures me we have a very good case for even more, given his extended absences and, shall we say, service-related emotional instability. A little PTSD can be very financially advantageous in a divorce. The recording continued, a sickening litany of their treachery, but I had heard more than enough. My blood ran cold. They weren't just planning to replace me, to erase me from my own family. They were systematically, callously planning to rob me of everything I had ever worked for, everything I held dear, including my children. This was not just infidelity. This was a declaration of war. I opened my secure, encrypted email client and composed a terse message to Major Ben Carter. Sir, I typed, my fingers surprisingly steady. Remember that conversation we had at Fort McKinley about your brother-in-law, Ms. Hayes? I may require her. Formidable services after all. Sooner rather than later. But first, I need a very specific favor, sir, one that I believe only you, with your unique access and influence, can provide. I hit send. The message, a digital arrow loosed into the ether. Then I took a deep breath and called the main number for Archer, Bellwether and Stone, the prestigious law firm representing Olivia. It was time to rattle their cage. This is Liam Walker, I said clearly when the polished receptionist answered. I believe Mr. Graham Phillips has been rather eager to reach me. One moment, Mr. Walker, she replied, her voice professionally cool, though I could almost hear the hurried whispers in the background. The line clicked. And then a smooth, confident, and utterly punchable voice came on the line. Mr. Walker, thank you for finally returning our numerous calls, Graham Phillips said, his tone a mixture of condescension and feigned relief. Your recent actions, specifically the unauthorized liquidation of joint marital assets, have caused my client, Mrs. Olivia Walker, considerable distress and, frankly, financial embarrassment. Have they now? I kept my voice neutral, betraying none of the cold fury simmering beneath the surface. That is unfortunate. Emptying joint bank accounts without notice or spousal consent, Mr. Walker is not looked upon favorably by the family courts in this state, or any state for that matter. Phillips continued, his voice dripping with smug superiority. I would strongly advise you to reverse these illicit transactions immediately before this escalates further. I'll certainly consider that advice, Mr. Phillips, I replied, letting a hint of steel creep into my tone. This isn't a negotiation, Mr. Walker. The lawyer pressed on, clearly accustomed to bullying tactics. This is a formal legal demand. Unless you wish to find yourself on the losing end of a very public and very expensive legal battle, one that could have severe repercussions for your military career, you will transfer those funds back into the joint accounts by close of business today. Am I clear? Mr. Phillips, I said calmly, letting the silence stretch for a beat, as your client Olivia informed you of the full and rather intimate nature of her ongoing relationship with the Dr. Ethan Miller of Redwood General Hospital? A distinct, telling pause on the other end of the line. Longer than a professional hesitation. I'm not at liberty to discuss my client's personal affairs, Phillips stammered, his earlier confidence faltering. Or, I continued, pressing my advantage, about their detailed plans for my children's future, a future that apparently involves relocating them to Isla Verde, Mexico without my consent? Or perhaps, I added, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, about how they've been systematically and illegally accessing my late grandfather's trust fund, a fund explicitly and solely designated for my children's higher education, for their own personal enrichment and lavish purchases? Silence. A long, heavy, and utterly damning silence from Mr. Phillips. I thought not, I continued, my voice now laced with cold, hard triumph. It seems your client has been rather selective in the information she has shared with her esteemed counsel. You, Mr. Phillips, will be receiving a comprehensive package of evidence by secure courier tomorrow morning. It will contain documents, recordings, and photographs that I believe you will find illuminating. After you've had the opportunity to thoroughly review its rather disturbing contents, if you still wish to represent Olivia Walker in this matter, then, by all means, we can continue this conversation. Until then, Mr. Phillips, I have absolutely nothing further to say to you or your client. I hung up before the flustered lawyer could utter another word, a small, grim smile playing on my lips. Then, I turned my full attention back to my computer, my mind already focused on the next phase of my plan. Phase 1, securing my remaining assets and gathering irrefutable evidence of their betrayal, was complete. Now came Phase 2, the strategic, devastating counterattack. Major Carter had taught me an important, brutal lesson years ago, a lesson learned in the unforgiving crucible of war. In any conflict, the ultimate objective isn't to fight fair. It's to win, decisively and unequivocally. I, Liam Walker, intended to do exactly that. Olivia had started this war. I was going to finish it. Chapter 4. The Leverage. 3 long, agonizing days after my unwelcome return to American soil. Days spent navigating a maelstrom of grief, anger, and cold, calculating resolve. I found myself sitting across from attorney Sophia Hayes in her impeccably appointed downtown Cedar Ridge office. Major Ben Carter, true to his word, had connected me with Ms. Hayes, describing her with a mixture of awe and trepidation as a damn shark who only smiles when she smells blood in the water. And right now, Liam, I think she's going to find your situation a veritable feast. The elegant, silver-haired woman, probably in her late 50s, but radiating an energy that belied her years, reviewed the comprehensive dossier Marcus and I had meticulously compiled. Her expression remained impassive, a mask of professional detachment, as she absorbed the details of Olivia's affair and financial machinations until she reached the section detailing Doar Miller's fraudulent activities. Then, and only then, did her perfectly sculpted eyebrows rise. Just a fraction, a subtle tell that I almost missed. Dar Ethan Miller has been rather busy, hasn't he? She noted, her voice a low, cultured purr. She tapped a perfectly manicured nail, the color of blood red, against a document outlining his scheme of writing prescriptions for non-existent patients and then brazenly billing insurance companies for a fortune. And your wife Olivia, she continued, her gaze flicking to another page, has apparently been falsifying nursing records at Redwood General Hospital to cover for him, to facilitate his crimes. That, Mr. Walker, is textbook insurance fraud, a federal offense with significant prison time. Yes, Miss Hayes, that's my understanding, I confirmed, my voice calm, betraying none of the turmoil still raging within me. And these rather ambitious property purchases in Aspen, she went on, her eyes narrowed in concentration, utilizing a cleverly constructed shell company funded, it appears, almost entirely by your grandfather's sacred trust fund for your children? That, Mr. Walker, is a clear case of misappropriation of fiduciary funds, another very serious felony. Also, yes, I affirmed, meeting her sharp, intelligent gaze directly. Sophia Hayes closed the thick folder with a decisive snap, the sound echoing in the opulent, silent office. Mr. Walker, she said, her voice devoid of any false sympathy, with evidence this comprehensive, this meticulously gathered, we could not only secure you a very, very favorable divorce settlement, leaving your wife with practically nothing, but we could also potentially see Olivia and her paramour, Dar Miller, facing a battery of serious criminal charges. We're talking significant jail time for both of them. I'm not primarily interested in criminal charges, Miss Hayes, I clarified, my voice firm. Not yet anyway. That's a tool, not the objective. What I want, what I absolutely need, is leverage. Unshakable, undeniable leverage. For what specific purpose, Mr. Walker? She inquired, her eyes searching mine, trying to gauge my true intentions. My children, Ms. Hayes, I said simply, the words imbued with a father's fierce, unwavering love. Noah and Chloe. That is my sole purpose. Olivia, their mother, has systematically poisoned my son Noah against me. She has twisted his perceptions, fed him lies. I need time, and I need the leverage to fix that, to undo the damage she has so cruelly inflicted. Sophia Hayes studied me for a long, silent moment, her expression unreadable. Most clients in your unenviable position, Mr. Walker, come in here wanting blood, she observed, a hint of surprise in her tone. They want revenge, retribution, public humiliation for their cheating spouse. I'm not most clients, Miss Hayes, I stated flatly. I've seen enough real bloodshed, enough hatred and violence in my career to last several lifetimes. Revenge is a hollow victory. Very well, Mr. Walker, she said, a ghost of a smile, perhaps that infamous shark smile touching her lips. She steepled her elegant fingers, a gesture of thoughtful consideration. Here's what I propose. We prepare comprehensive divorce filings immediately, detailing every instance of fraud, every betrayal. But, crucially, we don't submit them to the court just yet. Instead, she continued, her eyes gleaming with strategic cunning, we arrange an urgent private meeting with your wife Olivia and her attorney, Mr. Phillips, from Abbs Law, without the esteemed Dar Miller present. He's a complication we don't need at this stage. At that meeting, we present them with selected, carefully curated pieces of this rather damning evidence, enough to terrify them, but not so much as to reveal our entire hand. And then, she paused for dramatic effect. We outline our non-negotiable terms. What terms, Ms. Hayes? I asked, though I already had a good idea of what she was about to say. Full, unassailable physical and legal custody of your children, Noah and Chloe, throughout the duration of the divorce proceedings. No arguments, no negotiations on that point. Exclusive, immediate access to your family home in Cedar Ridge. Olivia moves out today. Complete and immediate separation of all your financial assets from hers. Every penny she touched illicitly will be accounted for and returned. And finally, she added, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, a strict, legally binding gag order, preventing her from discussing any aspect of this case or the evidence we possess with anyone, and that most certainly includes her lover, Dr. Ethan Miller. He needs to remain in the dark, at least for now. I considered her proposal, my mind racing through the potential scenarios, the risks and rewards. They won't agree, Ms. Hayes, I said, playing devil's advocate. Olivia is stubborn, and Phillips is a fighter, albeit a currently outmaneuvered one. Oh, they will agree, Mr. Walker. Sophia Hayes smiled thinly, that predatory glint more pronounced now. They will agree when the only alternative we present them with is immediate federal prosecution for insurance fraud, wire fraud, and a host of other rather unpleasant charges. You'd be surprised how remarkably flexible, how astonishingly cooperative people become when they are facing the very real prospect of a long prison sentence and public ruin. I nodded slowly, a grim sense of satisfaction settling within me. This was the path. Set up the meeting, Ms. Hayes, as soon as humanly possible. But, I added, there's something else I need to do first. Something personal. That afternoon, my heart a heavy stone in my chest, I sat in my nondescript rental car outside Westwood High School, the place where my daughter, Chloe, spent her days, blissfully unaware, I hoped, of the storm raging in her family's life. When the final bell shrieked, releasing the students into the bright afternoon sun, I spotted Chloe immediately. She was walking alone, her head down, her usual ebullient energy conspicuously absent, none of the carefree joy I had observed just days earlier. The weight of the world seemed to be on her young shoulders. My heart ached for her. I stepped out of the car, my legs feeling strangely unsteady. Chloe, I called out, my voice hoarse, cracking with emotion. My daughter froze mid-stride, then turned slowly, her eyes, so like her mother's but filled with an innocence Olivia had long since lost, widened in disbelief, then in dawning, tearful recognition. "Dad?" she whispered, her voice trembling, as if she were seeing a ghost. For a long suspended moment, neither of us moved, the bustling sounds of the school parking lot fading into a dull roar around us. Then, with a cry that tore at my soul, Chloe ran to me, her schoolbook scattering unheeded on the asphalt, and collided with my chest, her small arms wrapping around me in a desperate, clinging hug. I held her tightly, burying my face in her soft hair, inhaling the sweet, familiar scent of her shampoo, a scent that represented everything good and pure in my world. She was sobbing deep, racking sobs that shook her small frame, her tears soaking through my shirt, a physical manifestation of the pain and confusion she had clearly been enduring. "You came back," she managed to choke out between breaths, her voice muffled against my chest. You got my message. I was so scared you wouldn't." "I did, sweetheart," I murmured, holding her even tighter, trying to absorb some of her pain into myself. "I got your message, and I'm so sorry I didn't call you back sooner. I should have. There's just so much going on." She pulled away slightly, her tear-streaked face a portrait of bewildered hurt. "Mom said, she said you abandoned us, Dad," she whispered, her lower lip trembling. "She said you took all our money and just disappeared, that you didn't love us anymore." I felt a sharp, violent stab of anger, so intense it almost buckled my knees, but I forced myself to keep my expression gentle, my voice calm, for Chloe's sake. "That's not what happened, Chloe," I said softly, cupping her face in my hands, willing her to believe me. "Not at all, but it's very complicated, sweetheart, too complicated for you to have to worry about." "Are you and Mom? Are you getting divorced?" she asked, her voice small and frightened, the question hanging heavy in the air between us. "Probably, honey," I admitted, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. There was no point in lying to her, not anymore. Yes, I think we are. But that doesn't change, not for 1 second, how I feel about you or about Noah, I added, my voice thick with emotion. You two are my world. Always have been. Always will be. Noah. Noah hates you right now, Dad, she said bluntly, with the brutal honesty of a child who hasn't yet learned the art of diplomatic evasion. He believes everything Mom and Dr. Nate say about you. Dr. Nate? I repeated, the unfamiliar, overly chummy moniker grating on my nerves, another small, insidious encroachment into my family. Chloe rolled her eyes, a flash of her usual spirit momentarily breaking through her distress. That's what they want us to call him now. Dr. Ethan Miller. Mom says he's our special friend. As if, she muttered under her breath, he's suddenly part of our family. It's disgusting. I suppressed a fresh surge of protective fury, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. Has he been? Has he been staying at the house, Chloe? I asked, dreading the answer. Almost every night, Dad, she whispered, her eyes darting around nervously, as if afraid of being overheard. Ever since you were supposed to come home and didn't. Mom said it's because she's scared you might come back and hurt her. She said you were dangerous now because of the war. The vile, calculated accusation, painting me as a threat to my own family, hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath, leaving me reeling. Chloe, I choked out, my voice hoarse with disbelief and pain. You know I would never, ever. I know, Dad, she interrupted, her faith in me, a small, unwavering flame in the overwhelming darkness, shining brightly in her tear-filled eyes. I know you wouldn't. I told him that, she continued, a note of defiance creeping into her voice. I screamed it at them, but they don't listen to me. They treat me like I'm a stupid little child who doesn't understand anything. You are a child, sweetheart, I said softly, stroking her hair, my heart aching with a love so fierce it was almost unbearable. My child. My brave, smart, wonderful child. And I'm going to fix this, Chloe, I promised, my voice filled with a conviction I was desperately trying to feel. I swear to you, I'm going to make this right. How, Dad? She asked, her eyes searching mine, desperate for reassurance, for hope. How can you fix something this broken? Do you trust me, Chloe? I asked, my gaze holding hers. More than anything else in the world, do you trust your old dad? She nodded without a moment's hesitation, her unwavering faith a balm to my wounded soul. Always, Dad. You know I do. Then I need you to do something for me, I said, my voice low and serious. Something very important, and potentially a little bit risky. Can you be brave for me? I handed her a small, encrypted flash drive, no bigger than her thumb. This, I explained, contains some very important information, a special program. I need you, when it's safe, when no one is watching, to plug it into your mother's laptop, the one I bought her for her birthday last year. And then, you just need to press the button on the screen that says Execute. That's all. Can you do that for me, sweetheart? What? What will it do, Dad? Chloe asked, her brow furrowed with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation as she examined the innocuous-looking device. It will help me protect you and Noah, Chloe, I said, choosing my words carefully. It will help me find out the truth. And it won't harm anyone, I promise you that, I added, meeting her worried gaze. It's completely safe. Chloe, my brave, resourceful daughter, tucked the flash drive securely into the pocket of her jeans. I'll do it tonight, Dad, after Mom and Noah are asleep. One more thing, Chloe, I said, my voice firm but gentle. This is crucial. You cannot tell anyone, absolutely anyone, that you saw me today. Not your brother, Noah. Not your mother. Not your friends. No one. Can you keep that secret for me, just for a little while longer? Yes, Dad, she promised, her expression solemn. I can keep a secret. She hugged me again, fiercely, her small body trembling slightly. When will I see you again, Dad? For real? Soon, sweetheart, I promised, my heart aching at the uncertainty in her voice. Very, very soon. I promise. As I watched Chloe walk away, her shoulders a little less slumped, a spark of her old resilience rekindled in her eyes. I felt a complex mixture of profound pride and deep, gnawing sorrow. My daughter's unwavering loyalty, her courage was a bright, solitary star in this oppressive darkness. But the undeniable fact that she, my innocent child, had been unwillingly, unfairly drawn into this sordid, adult mess, forced to take sides, to keep secrets, filled me with a regret so profound it was almost suffocating. Children shouldn't have to choose sides between their parents. They shouldn't have to bear the burden of adult betrayals. But Olivia, in her selfishness and greed, had forced that terrible choice, and now she and D.R. Miller would face the inevitable, devastating consequences of their actions. Later that night, as I sat alone in my sterile hotel room, the silence amplifying my anxieties, my laptop pinged with a discreet alert. The program on the flash drive, Chloe's mission, had been successfully activated. Within seconds, a torrent of data, a digital avalanche, began flowing silently, invisibly to my secure, encrypted server. Olivia's emails, her text messages, her private financial records, her internet browser history, everything, a complete mirror image of her digital life, her secrets laid bare. Among the countless files, one folder in particular caught my eye, its label sending a chill down my spine. Divorce Strategy Liam. Inside, my blood ran cold as I reviewed the documents. This wasn't a recent development. This was a meticulously planned campaign that had clearly been in motion for over a year, perhaps even longer. There were records of consultations with high-powered divorce attorneys long before she had any inkling I might suspect her affair. There were detailed discussions with smarmy financial advisors about how to best hide marital assets, how to shield her ill-gotten gains from my reach. And most disturbingly, most cruelly, there was a recently commissioned psychological evaluation of me, Liam Walker, a document filled with lies and distortions, expertly crafted to portray me as potentially unstable, emotionally volatile, suffering from severe, untreated PTSD as a direct result of my deployments. They hadn't just been planning to leave me. They had been systematically, maliciously building a case to paint me as an unfit father, a dangerous, broken man whose military service had irrevocably damaged him, a man from whom his children needed to be protected. It was a declaration of war, and Olivia was clearly prepared to use our children as weapons. My phone buzzed, a harsh, unwelcome intrusion, with a text message from Sophia Hayes. Meeting set. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. sharp, my office. Both O and her attorney, Phillips, have confirmed their attendance. They sound nervous. Good. I sent back my terse acknowledgement, then opened the digital dossier I had been painstakingly building, adding the new, damning information harvested from Olivia's laptop. My position, already strong, was now virtually unassailable. The elaborate, deceitful house of cards she and Dr. Ethan Miller had so arrogantly, so carelessly constructed was about to come crashing down around them, burying them in the rubble of their own lies. My phone rang again. It was Marcus. "You need to see this, Liam, right now," my friend said without preamble, his voice tight with urgency. "Miller, your wife's esteemed doctor, just made a very large cash withdrawal from a new account, probably untraceable. And, get this, he also just purchased 2 one-way, first-class tickets on Skyward Airlines to Isla Verde, Mexico, departing next week. 2 passengers, him and your wife, Olivia Walker. They were planning to run, to flee the country with my money, to escape the consequences of their actions. The cowards." "Looks that way, brother," Marcus confirmed, his voice grim. "They're cutting their losses and making a break for it. What's your move, Liam? We need to act fast." I thought for a moment, my mind racing, processing this new, critical piece of intelligence. Their desperation was a weapon I could use. "Let them think their plan is still viable, Marcus," I said finally, a cold, calculated plan forming in my mind. Let them believe they're still in control for now. You're playing with fire, Liam, Marcus warned, his voice laced with concern. This could blow up in your face. Fire is only dangerous, Marcus, if you're the one who ends up getting burned, I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. And I have absolutely no intention of being anywhere near the flames when they finally, inevitably, ignite. Chapter 5. The Meeting. Sophia Hayes's conference room, a veritable temple to corporate power and accumulated wealth, was clearly designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic, almost arrogant view of downtown Cedar Ridge, a city spread out like a supplicant at its feet. A massive, polished mahogany table, easily capable of seating 20, dominated the center of the room, its gleaming surface reflecting the cold, ambient light. The abstract artwork adorning the walls, I suspected, cost more than my entire annual salary from my military service. It was a carefully curated stage, and judging by the nervous, furtive glances Olivia kept exchanging with her attorney, Graham Phillips, it was undeniably working its intended magic. I sat beside Miss Hayes, my posture deliberately relaxed, projecting an air of calm confidence I didn't entirely feel, yet alert, every sense heightened, ready for the confrontation to come. Across the vast expanse of the table, Olivia looked like a cornered animal, a volatile combination of barely suppressed anger and palpable fear. It was an interesting and not entirely unattractive combination on her usually composed features. Her attorney, the aforementioned Mr. Phillips of Archer, Bellwether and Stone, maintained a strained professional facade, but his frequent, almost obsessive, checking of his expensive watch betrayed his underlying anxiety, his dawning realization that he was severely outgunned. Thank you both for agreeing to this informal meeting, Sophia Hayes began, her voice as smooth and cool as polished marble, each word carefully chosen, precisely delivered. We have a proposal that, we believe, could save everyone involved considerable time, unnecessary expense, and perhaps most importantly, a great deal of public embarrassment and reputational damage. Phillips, clearly flustered but attempting to regain control, cleared his throat viciously. Before we proceed any further, Ms. Hayes, he blustered, my client, Mrs. Walker, formally demands the immediate and unconditional return of all funds Mr. Walker improperly, and I might add illegally, removed from their joint marital accounts. This is non-negotiable. Sophia Hayes smiled, a slow, deliberate unveiling of that predatory, shark-like expression Major Carter had warned me about. It was a chilling sight. Mr. Phillips, she purred, her voice dangerously soft, given your client's current, precarious position, I would strongly advise against making any demands whatsoever. She then slid a slim, innocuous-looking folder across the polished table towards him. It landed with a soft thud that echoed loudly in the suddenly silent room. Perhaps you and your client would care to review these documents while we wait. Take your time. No rush. As Phillips hesitantly opened the folder, his eyes widening in disbelief with each page he turned, I allowed myself to study my wife, Olivia. The woman I had loved, the woman who had shattered my world. Olivia had always been undeniably beautiful, tall and slender, with a cascade of rich auburn hair that framed a face of classic, almost regal, proportions and striking green eyes that had once, a lifetime ago, looked at me with a love and adoration that I now knew had been a carefully constructed lie. Now, those same captivating eyes studiously avoided my gaze, focusing instead on her perfectly manicured nails, as if the fate of the universe rested upon their flawless polish. Phillips's face, already pale, visibly blanched as he turned each damning page, the color draining from his cheeks as if he were witnessing a horrific accident. The carefully constructed narrative of his client's victimhood was crumbling before his very eyes. Where in God's name did you get these records? He finally stammered, his voice hoarse, his professional composure shattered. This is an outrageous invasion of privacy. Does their provenance, Mr. Phillips, truly matter more than their undeniable, irrefutable contents? Sophia Hayes counted smoothly, her voice laced with icy contempt. These, these baseless allegations are. Phillips began, grasping at straws. Factual, Mr. Phillips, Sophia Hayes interrupted, her voice sharp as a scalpel. Every single document in that folder, every transaction, every recording has been meticulously verified, cross-referenced, and is entirely admissible in a court of law. The insurance fraud alone, she added, her gaze flicking towards Olivia, carries a mandatory minimum 5-year federal prison sentence. And that's before we even begin to discuss the wire fraud, the embezzlement from a child's trust fund, or the conspiracy charges. Olivia's head snapped up at the mention of prison, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and disbelief. Insurance fraud, she gasped, her voice a strangled whisper. What? What are you talking about? I never. Phillips, regaining a semblance of composure, placed a restraining hand on her arm, his expression grim. Olivia, we need to confer. Privately. Now. By all means, Mr. Phillips. Sophia Hayes gestured magnanimously towards a discreet side door. The adjoining room is, of course, at your disposal. Please, take all the time you need. As they hastily retreated, Olivia shooting me a look of pure venom as she passed, I remained silent, my gaze fixed on the distant, indifferent skyline of Cedar Ridge. I had prepared myself mentally for this moment, for seeing Olivia again, for confronting the raw, visceral betrayal face to face. What I hadn't expected, what I was utterly unprepared for, was the profound, hollow feeling in the pit of my stomach. Not searing pain, not consuming anger, just a vast, empty, desolate numbness. You're handling this remarkably well, Liam, Sophia Hayes observed quietly, her voice softer now, almost gentle. I've had worse days, Miss Hayes, I replied, the understatement of the century. Considerably worse. Most clients in your situation either break down completely or explode in a torrent of rage and recrimination, she noted, her gaze analytical. You're remarkably composed, almost unnervingly so. Military training, Ms. Hayes, I explained, the familiar mantra, a shield against the emotional storm raging within me. Emotion clouds judgment, and I need clear, ice-cold judgment right now, more than ever before. Olivia and Phillips returned 15 minutes later, an eternity in that tension-filled room. Phillips looked utterly defeated, his shoulders slumped, the fight visibly drained from him. Olivia's earlier fear, however, had now morphed into a cold, defiant fury, her eyes blazing with a desperate, cornered animal's rage. We're prepared to discuss terms, Ms. Hayes, Phillips announced, his voice flat, devoid of its earlier bluster. Sophia Hayes, sensing victory, proceeded to outline our demands, her voice crisp and businesslike. I, Liam Walker, would retain the family home in Cedar Ridge and be granted immediate, sole primary custody of both children, Noah and Chloe, throughout the duration of the divorce proceedings. Olivia would vacate the premises immediately, within 24 hours, taking only her personal belongings. The Walker Family Trust Fund, or what remained of it, would be immediately frozen, pending a full forensic accounting and final settlement. And most critically, a temporary, but legally ironclad, gag order would prevent either party from discussing any aspect of the case, particularly the evidence presented, with anyone outside their respective legal counsel. This is outrageous. This is extortion. Olivia finally hissed, her voice trembling with barely suppressed rage, her eyes blazing with hatred, finally meeting mine across the vast expanse of the table. You're using our children, my children, as pawns in your sick game of revenge. That's a rather interesting accusation, Olivia, I responded, my voice deceptively calm, a cold, dangerous stillness settling over me, coming from the woman who systematically coached our 17-year-old son to send me a message telling me not to come home for Christmas. A message designed to break my heart, to keep me away while you finalized your escape plans. You weren't coming home for us, Liam. Olivia shot back, her voice rising, cracking under the strain. Don't you dare pretend otherwise. You are only coming home because your precious deployment finally ended. There's a vast, unbridgeable difference. In that perceived difference, Olivia, in your twisted mind, justifies what you did? The lies? The theft? The systematic destruction of our family? 16 years, Liam. She shrieked, her carefully constructed composure finally shattering, tears of rage and self-pity streaming down her face. 16 long, lonely years of raising our children almost entirely alone while you were off playing hero in godforsaken foreign countries, chasing adrenaline and glory. 16 years of never knowing from one day to the next if you were dead or alive, of restarting our entire lives, our children's lives, every time you got transferred to yet another new, dangerous assignment. What in God's name did you expect from me? Honesty, Olivia, I said simply, my voice quiet but firm, cutting through her tirade. That's all I ever expected. That's all I ever asked for. If you wanted out, if you were unhappy, you could have just said so. We could have handled it like adults. Instead, I continued, my voice hardening. You lied, you stole, you systematically turned our own son against me. You chose destruction over honesty. I protected our son, Liam. Olivia's voice cracked, a tremor of genuine pain, or perhaps just fear, finally breaking through her anger. I protected him from more soul-crushing disappointment, from more empty promises and missed birthdays, and a father who was never, ever truly present. I leaned forward, my gaze unwavering, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous intensity. Here's what's going to happen now, Olivia, I stated, each word a carefully aimed dart. You're going to sign these papers, every single one of them, without another word of argument. You're going to pack your bags and move out of our house, my children's house, by nightfall. And then, Olivia, you are going to sit down with Noah, and you are going to tell him the unvarnished, unpalatable truth about why I stayed away when I was supposed to come home for Christmas. You will undo the damage you have done to my relationship with my son. That is non-negotiable. And if I refuse, Liam, she spat, her eyes blazing with defiance, though a flicker of fear still danced in their depths. What then? I nodded curtly to Sophia Hayes, who, with a grimly satisfied expression, produced another, even thicker folder from her briefcase and placed it deliberately on the table. Then Olivia, Ms. Hayes said, her voice devoid of all warmth. These documents, detailing every aspect of your and Dr. Miller's rather extensive fraudulent activities, go directly to the FBI, the Colorado Medical Board, the IRS, and, for good measure, the Cedar Ridge Chronicle and Channel 8 News. Your choice. Phillips, looking utterly defeated, placed a restraining hand on Olivia's arm once more, his face ashen. My client will sign the temporary agreement, Ms. Hayes, he conceded, his voice barely a whisper. One condition, Liam, Olivia said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the tears still glistening on her cheeks, a final, desperate attempt to salvage some shred of control. Ethan, Dr. Miller, he isn't mentioned by name in any of this. His reputation. Leave him out of it, please. I exchanged a quick, almost imperceptible glance with Sophia Hayes, who gave a tiny, almost invisible nod. For now, this was acceptable. Dr. Miller's reckoning would come later. Agreed, Olivia, I said, my voice flat, devoid of triumph. For now. As Olivia, her hand trembling, signed the documents that effectively ended our marriage and stripped her of her children, I felt no elation, no sense of vindication, only the crushing, overwhelming weight of what came next. The monumental task of rebuilding my fractured relationship with my children, particularly with Noah, while simultaneously navigating the treacherous, emotional wreckage of my shattered marriage. My phone vibrated silently in my pocket. A text message from Marcus. My blood ran cold as I read the terse, chilling words. Subject to Miller. Just booked a third ticket to Isla Verde on Skyward Airlines. Child's fare. Departure still scheduled for next week. They weren't just planning to flee. They were planning to abduct one of my children, to rip them from my life, to use them as a shield, a bargaining chip. And given Noah's carefully cultivated animosity towards me, his vulnerable teenage emotions so expertly manipulated by his mother, it wasn't difficult to guess which child they intended to take. The sheer audacity, the cruelty of their plan stole my breath. I discreetly showed the message to Sophia Hayes, whose professional composure momentarily slipped, her expression hardening into one of cold fury. "Sign here, Mr. Walker," she said, her voice tight with urgency, indicating the final page of the agreement. "We have additional, far more serious matters to address, immediately." As we left the oppressive silence of the conference room, Sophia Hayes leaned in and whispered, her voice a low, urgent hiss, "My private office, Liam. Now. This changes everything." Once inside her sanctuary, the heavy oak door firmly closed, insulating us from the outside world. Sophia Hayes' professional calm gave way to a focused, urgent efficiency. "If they're seriously planning to take your son out of the country, in direct violation of a pending custody order, against your express wishes," she said, her fingers already flying across her keyboard, her assistant on speakerphone, "we need an emergency ex parte hearing before a judge, this afternoon. We need to shut this down now. Judge Watkins at the Summit Creek County Court owes me a significant favor," she muttered, more to herself than to me. "We can get before him within hours." "We need more than just a hearing, Ms. Hayes," I said, my voice grim, my mind already several steps ahead. "We need to assume they'll try something desperate. We need constant, covert surveillance on both Olivia and Doar Miller around the clock. And, most importantly, we need to secure Noah. Get him somewhere safe, somewhere they can't reach him." "Mr. Walker." "Liam," Ms. Hayes began, a note of caution in her voice. "Whatever you're thinking, please, let the authorities handle this." "They won't just try to abduct my son in broad daylight, Ms. Hayes," I interrupted, my patience wearing thin. "They're not stupid, just desperate. They'll be clever. They'll wait until the last possible moment, probably the night before their flight, when they think we've let our guard down. We need to be ready for them. We need to anticipate their every move." Sophia Hayes studied me, a flicker of something akin to admiration in her sharp eyes. You've clearly thought this through, Liam. Every contingency." "I plan for contingencies, Ms. Hayes," I replied, my voice flat. "It's what I do. It's what kept me, and my men, alive all these years in places most people only see in their nightmares." She nodded slowly, a silent acknowledgement of my expertise, my grim determination. "All right, Liam," she conceded. "I'll get the emergency custody order pushed through immediately. You focus on keeping track of your son, on ensuring his safety. Do whatever you deem necessary." I was already texting Marcus, my thumbs flying across the keypad. "Need full, covert eyes on Subject 3 Noah immediately. School, home, all his known hangouts, every single movement. No mistakes, this is critical." The response from Marcus came back within seconds, a testament to his efficiency and unwavering loyalty. "On it, brother. Already anticipated this. My best team is en route. Consider it done." "What about Subject 1 Olivia?" he added in a follow-up text. I considered my options, weighing the risks. Olivia was angry, humiliated, but for the moment, she was constrained by the agreement she'd just signed, by the threat of immediate legal repercussions. Doar Miller, however, had no such constraints. He was the wild card, the more immediate, unpredictable threat. "Priority on 2 Miller and 3 Noah," I texted back to Marcus. "Subject 1 Olivia is effectively neutralized, at least for now. Let her stew in her own mess." What I didn't share with either Sophia Hayes or Marcus Cole was the final, crucial phase of my overarching plan, the one that would ensure, with absolute certainty, that Olivia Walker and Dr. Ethan Miller never threatened my family, my children, ever again. For that, I needed different allies, resources that operated outside the conventional legal system. As I left Sophia Hayes' opulent office, the emergency order already being fast-tracked through the Summit Creek County Court. I made a call to a number very few people possessed. The direct, secure line to Major Ben Carter's personal phone at the Pentagon. "It's Walker, sir," I said, my voice low and steady, when the Major answered on the second ring. "I need to activate Contingency Delta. All phases. Immediately." There was a beat of stunned silence on the other end of the line. Contingency Delta was reserved for extreme circumstances, for situations requiring unconventional, off-the-book solutions. That's an extreme measure, Liam," Major Carter finally said, his voice heavy with unspoken questions. "Are you absolutely certain this is warranted? Are you sure there's no other way?" "They're planning to take my son Noah out of the country, sir, to abduct him," I stated, my voice cold as ice. "They are a clear and present danger to my family." "So yes, Major," I continued, my resolve hardening with every word. "I am absolutely, unequivocally certain." "Understood, Liam," Major Carter replied, his voice now devoid of hesitation, replaced by a grim, professional efficiency. "I trust your judgment. I'll make the necessary calls. Contingency Delta will be fully active within the hour. Stay safe, son." I ended the call and checked my watch, the seconds ticking down with relentless precision. 18 hours. 18 hours until the endgame began. 18 hours until Olivia and Doar Miller discovered exactly what it meant to declare war on Liam Walker.